Hello there. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight I have a paper pumpkin alternative project for you here using the September Paper Pumpkin subscription kit. It's called Autumn Abundance, and it creates 9 cards, 3 cards each of 3 designs. The kit includes all of the pre-printed bases, pre-printed envelopes which have an interior color and an exterior leaf pattern, and it creates these gorgeous cards. Now, parts and pieces of this have a little bit of embedded bronze foil in it. The kit includes an exclusive stamp set that has 3 leaf stamps, a snail stamp, and several sentiment stamps. It includes a Cajun Craze stamp spot, and of course all the parts and pieces to create all 3 gorgeous cards. I love the colors in it. I love the cards themselves, but of course for my Paper Pumpkin Plus group, I always promise alternative scrapbooking projects to go with the card kits each month. So I like to get 8 scrapbook layouts out of each Paper Pumpkin kit. So this 3-card kit is going to be converted to create 4 2-page scrapbook layouts. So you can see all of the gorgeous die cuts, sentiment, background pieces, the bases, the stamp, the full color instructions if you want to create those cards as originally designed. Now, because these cute leaves come in the stamp set, I was reminded of a project that I did in 2022 when I was the guest designer for Close to My Heart. I created a 4 seasons workshop in which I created a set of pages that could be applied to all 4 seasons. And I was thinking of this layout here that had all kinds of leaf flourishes or flowers around the base of a square. So in the fall, it was fall leaves. In the summer, it was summer leaves and flowers. In the spring, it was flowers and spring leaves. And in the winter, it was all kinds of winter sprigs. I thought that would be a great inspiration layout for these particular parts and pieces, because there's gorgeous fall pieces and gorgeous leaves, and I'm going to show you how to stretch it to even more parts and pieces. So if you look in the instructions, it will tell you all of the coordinating colors that go with this project. There are a lot: Cajun Craze, Crumb Cake, Crushed Curry, Early Espresso, Night of Navy, Pecan Pie, Poppy Parade, Pumpkin Pie, Very Vanilla, and Wild Wheat. Now, my photo inspiration is a trip that I took, an annual girl trip that I took with some of my girlfriends to the Grand Canyon. We have this awesome photo here of all of our cowgirl boots, and we actually rode horse along the outer ridge of the Grand Canyon and spent the day not riding horse. What am I talking about? Riding mules around the Grand Canyon, and it was an inspirational time. We had a great time on this particular girl trip. Now, I have scrapped a few photos from this trip, even though this trip is almost 9 years ago, but I have not scrapped that many of these photos, and these particular photos I haven't scrapped at all. So we're going to start with Very Vanilla base and a 9x9 Night of Navy cardstock piece and an 8 3/4 by 8 3/4 Very Vanilla piece. Now, the card bases are 8.5 inches wide, and so since I have an 8 3/4 by 8 3/4 Very Vanilla base piece on the interior of the Night of Navy, the 8.5-inch card base is going to fit perfect, but I'm going to piece together another piece to create the top so that that interior base can look finished. So I'm going to actually cut 3 inches off of a second base, which is going to leave some great leaf flourish pattern to use on one of the other 8 pages that I'm going to be creating as alternative projects. So that's going to fit perfect. And I'm not worried about the seam. We'll find ways to cover up the seam or for the seam to not be as noticeable. So I'm going to photo mat or double photo mat the 5x7 boot photo. But here I'm showing another alternative paper pumpkin project that I did using the August kit Time for Cake. So you can see as I'm pulling up these pieces that they're just bits and pieces of card bases and envelopes, and the trick to converting the card kit into a scrapbook layout is making those pieces appear longer than they really are, because most of the pieces are only 5.5 inches, which is the length of a card base. So here I have adhered the 8 3/4 by 8 3/4 very vanilla to the 9x9 Night of Navy. I'm putting the 8.5 inch card base on top of that interior very vanilla, and then the 3x8.5 piece that I trimmed off of a second card base on the top of that. And then I'll be putting the photo over the top. So again, it's a 5x7 photo with a 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 very vanilla photo mat, and then a 5 1/8 by 7 1/8, and then a 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 Cajun Craze cardstock photo mat. Now I'm taking each of the inks that coordinates and I'm just rubbing the ink on a 6x12 very vanilla piece, and I'm going to be fussy cutting some pieces out of this after I add the ink to show a way to stretch the original elements that come in these kits. Because this is a fall card kit and it's going to be 8 pages total, 4 2-page layouts, I'm going to need a lot of bits, and I like to have a lot of extra bits when I'm doing fall because it's all about the leaves. So I'm rubbing some Cajun Craze, some wild wheat, I have crushed curry, I have pumpkin pie, I have a little bit of early espresso and some pecan pie, and I'm just using a blending brush and rubbing a little bit across the very vanilla piece. And then we're going to set that aside and we're going to fussy cut some additional leaves out of that. I love to take original stickers or leaf die cuts, or not just leaf die cuts, any die cuts out of any kits, and to be able to use those as a pattern with regular cardstock or other pattern paper to be able to create more of the same. So for example, the large leaves that come in this kit, there are 9 of them. So when I think about the 3 cards, if you were separating them out and dividing them out, you would have 9 leaves total for 4 2-page layouts. And I feel like to have a really full and rich layout, I'm going to want more leaves than that. So before we fussy cut the inked piece that we created, I'm going to actually stamp more leaves. It's a gorgeous, nice, clean leaf stamp. All of the leaf stamps that come in the stamp set that is exclusive to this kit stamp so well. Look how beautiful these leaves stamp. So there's 2 different styles of leaves, and then there's also a sprig. We're going to be using the sprig directly onto by doing some stamping directly onto the background page, but we're first going to stamp 8 of every leaf in each of the colors, the coordinating colors. So we're going to stamp 8 of each style in early espresso, Cajun Craze, crushed curry, pumpkin pie. Let's see, did I say Cajun Craze already? And then wild wheat. And let's see, is that all of them? Did I say all of them? Crushed curry, Cajun Craze, early espresso, pumpkin pie, wild wheat, and looks like crumb cake. I must have used crumb cake. Goodness gracious, there's so many colors that coordinate with this. Then for the snail, I'm using crumb cake base for the snail body, and I'm using the Poppy Parade for the top of the snail, which actually matches perfectly with the actual punch-out die-cut snail that comes in the kit. Now, you are not going to need near this many extras for this 2-page layout. However, I'm prepping for 8 pages. So you can fast forward through this. I'm actually showing just a little bit on camera, and I'll do the rest off camera. And I'm going to fussy cut each of those leaves, which does take a little bit of time, but you can put on one of your favorite movies or TV shows and just fussy cut those out. I promise it will totally be worth that. So I will cut the Poppy Parade body of the snail and attach that, or shell of the snail, and attach that to the crumb cake body and fussy cut that out. Now, of course, because it's fall, we're going to dirty up all the edges of all the leaves that I created. So I'm going to use pecan pie and a mini ink blending tool, and I'm just going to rub all of those edges. Once all of those edges are done, I'm going to add those pieces to the junk gypsy tray. So all of the parts and pieces have been punched out of all of the die cuts and added to the junk gypsy tray so that everything will be accessible. Now, I think it's a good idea to go ahead and make all of those punch out pieces coordinate and match. And so we're going to use the pecan pie ink on all the edges of like the little logs, the extra leaves, the blue leaves, all of the parts and pieces that are in the junk gypsy tray that came out of the punch out pieces. So now you can see what we have left for bases, but I'm actually looking for a couple little pieces that can go behind the large photo just for added elements of interest. So we don't have a lot of pattern other than the leaf pattern. And because we're going to already have so many leaves, we're going to use parts and pieces of the envelopes. So I'm going to open up the Night of Navy envelope and just roughly trim off the edges to even that out so that it's even. And then we're going to cut about an inch off so that I have about an inch of that envelope. Now, I don't want to cut any more of that off because I really like the leaf pattern on the other side, and I may end up needing that. So I have 1 inch of that, and I'll even up the bottom. I'll just trim off that bottom and even it up. And then I'm going to actually open up the pecan pie envelope, and I'm going to do the same thing. It's a little bit littler of an envelope. It's a smaller envelope. And I'm going to cut an inch off of that one as well. Now, I don't just want solid paper, but I also don't want a leaf pattern. So I'm going to grab my scoring board and see if I can create an interesting pattern with the scoring board. I'm going to score 1/2 inch all the way across this envelope piece, and then I'm going to get an emery board or a sanding block, and I'm going to sand over the scored pieces so that it will give it the look of being of like a striped pattern. I'm going to fold it a little bit just to give it a little bit more texture so that the emery board or the sandpaper will make it look like it has a striped pattern. So once I go over it, you can see that it's leaving lines on that. And then I'm going to actually take the pecan pie ink and ink the edges of that also so that it has a nice dirty look on the edges, and yet it looks like a striped pattern now. So it doesn't just look like all of the solids are going to blend into each other. Once I have that done, I'm going to add another piece of cardstock, an early espresso piece of cardstock that will be 3 by 7, just to have all those added pieces behind the photo. So I don't know exactly yet how I'm going to arrange that behind the photo, but primarily like the inspiration layout that I created back in 2022, where it just had basic strips of paper for added interest that were toggled onto the side of the photo mat. So I fuss around with those quite a bit, and then decide that I'm going to work on the background a little bit, and then I will just sort of toggle those elements to the side when I get them just so. I think that I want the sandpaper piece that looks like the stripe to balance in between the solid brown and the solid blue, just so that it looks like we have another pattern in there. And then we'll be adding lots and lots of bits from the Junk Gypsy tray. So I'm going to draw some lines about 1 3/4 inches in from the left side and 1 3/4 inch down from the top and up from the bottom and in from the right to create a nice little box in the middle of the very vanilla base. That gives me a point of reference so that when I do my stamping, I want my stamping to show out from underneath the square. So I'm going to do second generation Night of Navy with the sprig, and I'm going to put some sprigs sort of randomly, but not so randomly, around the square. So one in the upper right, 2 toward the middle, making sure that one is a little longer than the other, and then 2 more toward the bottom going around the corner, and then 2 in the middle. And some of these are going to be covered up, but I'm just kind of going around the square, and I'm just creating some elements of interest with the stamp. So I've got 2 in the lower left corner, I'll put 1 in the middle left, and then I'll put 1 or 2 more up at the top left, and then a couple more in the middle in the top. And you can stay tuned to the end of this video because I will be showing you the corresponding companion page that I created for this layout. We're doing the left page on camera, and I will show you the right page when we get to the end so you can see how the 2-page spread turned out. So I have these 9 leaves here that are gorgeous, and there's 3 that are the darker red, and then there is 6 that have a little bit more of a yellow tone. I love them, but I know creating 8 pages, I'm going to need more than 9 leaves. So I'm going to use that piece that we inked with all of the different coordinating colors, and I'm going to lay one of those punch out leaves on that, and then I'm going to fussy cut around that and create a leaf, and then I'm going to repeat this for that whole 6 by 12 sheet to create as many more leaves as I possibly can out of that inked sheet. Now I've pulled a colored pencil because I don't want it to be the veins of the leaves. I'm just drawing the veins of the leaves on, and I don't want it to be so bold. I just want to use a brown colored pencil, and you can use a brown colored pencil of your choice. And the colored pencil that I did use was a close to my heart watercolor colored pencil called Desert Sand. But just about any brown will do. And you can color the veins on. And then I went ahead and came back in with the pecan pie and a mini ink blending tool and did all the edges of those extra leaves that I created. So each leaf has the colored pencil lines in the middle. It has pecan pie inked around the edges. And then I came back in with the really bright poppy parade and added a little bit more red in some of those. And I came back in with a little bit of crushed curry and added a little bit more yellow yellow on those to make those look a little bit more like those punch out leaves. And I think they're gorgeous, and it's going to give me so many extra. And the beauty of that is you can ink plain, very vanilla cardstock and create as many of those extra leaves as you want to. So really the possibilities are endless in terms of how many you can create. So now I'm just kind of auditioning pieces. I'm just checking out which pieces I want where, and I know that I want this is going to be very full. This is definitely going to be the decorative page with lots of decorative elements, and all of those parts and pieces that we took the time to fussy cut out and stamp and ink are going to pay off here. I'm going to cut apart the little log die cut piece. I'm going to pull out some additional punch out leaves and cut those in half so we get extra parts and pieces out of those. I'm going to cut apart some blue leaves so that I can use clusters of 2 or even single ones so that I can actually still have a few blue pieces to be able to stretch to a different layout, and also to be able to have some color balance. If there's only 3 blue leaves total, I really need to cut those apart so that I can use that blue color in different parts on the layout. So I'm just playing around with my big pile of stamped leaves, getting placement, like I said, auditioning pieces and trying them out until I get something that's pleasing to the eye. So I'm trying to create some clusters on either side and over the top of the stamped pieces. So there will be so much texture because the base will be popped up with foam tape. It will have stamped bits around it. It has lots of inking. It will also have a little bit of colored pencil, and then it will have all of the leaves, some popped up, some flush in different places all the way around the square. And it's just an easy and gorgeous any season thing to do. As I showed on my 4 seasons layouts, there was a layout exactly using this exact inspiration for winter, spring, summer, and fall. So it really would work for spring flowers and leaves, summer flowers and leaves, fall leaves, and winter sprigs and pine. And so it's a great way to add gorgeous, gorgeous elements to a page. So I have been loving Paper Pumpkin as well as our kit collections, and I've been slowly working through the Paper Pumpkins and creating 8-page scrapbooking workshops out of each of the Paper Pumpkin kits. I am not the fastest demonstrator out there, and I'm super busy. I have a full-time career, and I have a large customer base with my amazing Snips by Kelly paper crafters and a pretty good-sized team of demonstrators under me in the Snapshots team, and 8 grandchildren. So you can about imagine how busy I am. So I tell my Paper Pumpkin Plus group that if you want heart and lots of love poured into these 8-page workshops that I create out of one card kit, pick me. If you want fast, move along. I'm just not the fastest because it takes me time to get to these projects. But once I do, I'm so happy with the results. I've really had so much fun converting these Paper Pumpkin kits. So of course I joined in May. I started my Paper Pumpkin Plus in June. So I have done June, July, and August, and now we're working here on the September. And I really love how they've turned out. So now that I have placement, at least initial placement of all of the parts and pieces, I'm going to work a little bit with these center pieces. So I'm actually going to cut apart another punch out that is a rounded wreath, and I'm going to cut the rounded wreath into several segments so I have a little bit more of like a more straight sprig. So I have so many leaves, it's nice to offset those leaves leaves with different little parts and pieces to add different twists. So I'm just cutting this piece apart in a V, and anywhere that I need to, I can add a little bit more of the pecan pie ink if there's like a sharp edge where I've cut it apart. But I think it's going to work great just to add another interesting twist. There's also a little bit of that bronze metallic inside the little piece that I'm cutting apart as well. But I love taking a piece and getting 4 or 5 pieces out of a single piece. So we're going to work a little bit on a cluster up at the top, and we're going to sort of cover up some of the little gaps, but I'm also going to cover up the seam. So the seam on the right page, or the right side of this page, isn't too noticeable where the two card bases come together, but I really do want to cover up the seam over toward the left. So I'm just going to do a cluster of a variety of leaves. I'm going to pop bits and pieces of those up and add elements underneath. And then I'm going to add one of these metallic leaves, which I think is gorgeous. I'm going to actually add a white banner also to this area over here on the left. And I'll dirty up the white banner with some pecan pie ink, and I'll actually fold the banner. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute. And I'll fold the banner so that it can be toggled a little bit so it looks like it's two different pieces. And then I'm going to just get these pieces just so, and I'm going to dig through the saying something ephemera and see if I can find a title. So the stamped sentiments in here will work for some little parts and pieces, but there isn't too much that I have to work with. I have with thanks, sending autumn wishes your way, and thinking of you, which I think I can get by with sending autumn wishes your way, but I'm going to put 2 of the saying something ephemera pieces together. Hello, friend. So I basically have a package of that ephemera that I just pull out anytime that I might need a title. There's all different colors of titles and sayings in the saying something ephemera, and I just keep a package of it around so that I can pull some different sentiments out of it. So now you can see how I've folded that banner piece in half, folded one little dovetailed piece backwards, and I'm going to use that as another filler or another element underneath. Now, I decide now that all the pieces are in place, now I can go a step further. I like where they are, but now I'm going to take a pencil or a rounded object, and I'm going to round all of the leaves. And then that's going to give it so much dimension. And once those leaves are rounded, I can also add foam tape under, or foam dimensionals under certain pieces. So now I've stamped the Sending Autumn Wishes Your Way in Night of Navy ink, and I'm dirtying up that whole sentiment piece, and then I'll be able to pop that sentiment piece up on one of the punch out stitched circles that comes right in the kit, pop it up with a little bit of foam tape on the right side, and then perhaps this might be a spot where I can add some of the punch out mushrooms or the punch out snails, or one of the smaller snails that I created out of the stamp set. I think that looks really, really cute, and it gives it a little bit of balance because it has that poppy parade in it. And so you can see just little bits of leaves in the card bases with the poppy parade, and that brings in a little bit more of the poppy parade for color balance. I'm getting happier, but no layout is complete until you've added bling. So I have quite a few sets of bling that I can choose from here. including the Drucy gems, the gold textured dots, the faux glass dots, and the adhesive back sequins, which I do land on because I think that bronze in there matches perfectly. Now, I do want to pull in the companion page and let you see the companion page that I created to go with this. I do think they go together perfectly. I think that they turned out gorgeous, and it's hard to believe that they are from a card kit. I love our paper pumpkin kits, and it's all the rage for scrapbooking demonstrators and customers everywhere to use the paper pumpkin kits as is or to convert those into alternative projects that they just love. And it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's so much fun. And sometimes when I get finished, I can hardly believe that it came out of a card kit. I love that I was able to scrapbook photos that were 9 years old that I hadn't yet had a chance to scrap. And these photos mean so much to me. Whenever you're visiting a wonder of the world like the Grand Canyon and you're with close friends, you just, I don't know, there's just an amazing feeling of a shared experience. And we rode horse throughout the Grand Canyon. Actually, not horse, we rode mules throughout the Grand Canyon, and we had so much fun. And this was shortly before all of us had lost all of our mothers. I think we had one friend here who had already lost her mother, and she was spreading her ashes in the Grand Canyon, which made it even more special. So I love the picture of our united boots and the pictures of us after we rode the mules through the gorgeous Grand Canyon. I love how the companion page mimics the left page, only 4x4 photos. The little card base that has the circle in it fit perfectly around one of the photos to feature the photo of all four of us girls together. I still call us girls. All four of us ladies, 80s ladies together. I love tying in the snails, putting the snails in the upper left, making a little cluster with another little journal spot up there, pulling in another one of the dovetailed banners, folding it at half to really duplicate those ingredients from the left page to the right page. So I'm getting happy. I hope you're getting happy and that you love this alternative paper pumpkin project. Hey, stay tuned to social media, my social media for the rest of the paper pumpkin projects for this Autumn Abundance kit, and stay tuned right here on Snips by Kelly for more to come.